This week on Prof and Dev Play Games, we're talking about the games we've already played this year that are standing out to us in terms of Game of the Year. Stay tuned. All right, my friends, welcome to episode 453 of Prof and Dev Play Games, one of our Game of the Year primers. This episode, I'm Larry, the professor at Prof Plays Games over there on Blue Sky, and over there is Anthony, the dev at Summer Speak on Blue Sky. How are you, Anthony?
I'm okay. Still a little tired from getting my vaxes earlier in the week.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I just know that have noticed that I still get tired earlier. It's kind of weird. Like nothing else. Don't feel anything at all. I'm just
a little sleepy, huh?
Just a little sleepy. And that's what this weekend has been. A little sleepy. I slept in this morning and it felt really good.
Nice. That's great.
Neither to do it. But no, doing fine. Doing fine.
Good. This week I have played almost no video games. I played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for 45 minutes, and I played UFO 50 for 10. That was it.
Because you were playing guitar.
I was playing guitar every spare second I had. I just played my set list over and over and over, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah.
Turns out that when
you can't practice it too much.
It turns out when you practice a lot, you kind of just do it. You know how to do it.
Yeah.
When those unexpected things happen, like when I started playing, there are 2 or 3 dogs that just started howling as soon as I started singing. And I was like, oh, great. That's excellent. But then I realized they were barking. There were some kids behind me on the hill that they went after. I was like, okay, good. It's not me.
It's not. That was hilarious. You're like, oh, okay.
Was highly embarrassed for about, I don't know, half a minute. I gotta keep going. So I just kept going. So yeah, played my first gig solo ever. I played solo out, one song here, one song there, but this was 9 songs, a whole set by myself, first time ever, and the first time I played publicly in front of people more than a few since high school, man.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
it went well.
Yeah, really well received. Played Everlong, my final song.
Nice.
And it was so good. It felt so good. So yeah, happy. But this is not a review my gig podcast. This is a video game podcast, and we're getting toward the end of the year, and we're just starting to kind of corral a few thoughts about what we played this year that stands out that may be on our lists for game of the year at the end of the year. And I'll toss one up first. It's one of the ones I played today, and it's UFO 50. It's a collection of 50 games, and each game has most games at least have a different mechanic. One I was playing today was called, I think it was like kick dodge or kickball. It wasn't kickball, but it was kick game or whatever. Where you are a little character and there's a soccer ball, and your goal is just to kick your soccer ball into the enemies on the screen, and you clear a screen, move on to the next screen, and progressively it gets harder and harder. And it's just that one idea of kicking a ball into enemies, and they keep turning it on its head and adding more to it and making it more difficult. That's just one game in that collection. There are so many games with so many interesting, like, one idea mechanics that they then twist and turn into a full game. And then some of those games have sequels. It's just so creative, inventive, thoughtful. It's I've said it before, but a game jam on steroids. And I've probably touched 20 of the 50 games. I still have a bunch that I've not even touched yet, and there's just delight at almost every single turn. There's only been one game that I have hated, and it's this ant strategy game that just, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's Combat Ants. Okay. And I think it's universally panned, but it's just not very good to me. But maybe there's something I'm missing. But so I'll start by saying UFO 50 is going to be on my list somewhere, I think, unless more stuff comes out before the end of the year that takes my imagination.
I could start with an indie one because I know this will be on my list. And it came out very early in the year. I had to check that it actually came out this year. Balatro.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. And actually, I booted it up briefly because they had another Friends of Balatro.
Yeah, Friends of Jimbo too.
Friends of Jimbo, which had Cyberpunk 2077 cards, Stardew Valley. I'd have to look it up again. Basically, it was 4 new indie games that were there, and it's not gameplay. It is literally ace card designs. So it's now that they've done these 2 Friends of Jimbo packs, each suit, its face cards has a default and 2 options of indie game. So the latest one was Slay the Spire, Binding of Isaac, Stardew Valley, and Cyberpunk 2077. And like Cyberpunk, you can use the Cyberpunk theme for your spades. Stardew Valley is diamonds. Slay the Spire is clubs, and Binding of Isaac is hearts. So it's just a fun little thing. I'm like, okay, this is cute that they're just working together with other indies, and I guess CD Projekt is indie, I guess. I mean, they're more
technically,
indie,
right?
They're more indie than the Dave the Diver people.
Yeah. Yep, that's
so,
right.
Balatro is totally on my list of game of the year. It was like came out of nowhere and was and is so incredibly addictive. Just one more hand, one more game,
one more run.
one more run. Incredibly well designed. So, totally on my list for sure.
It's a game that I played the demo early on, and thought it was really great, and then didn't pick it up because I thought it would be too addictive. Luckily, it hasn't been. I love it, but I only play it with my wife. And I was listening to Game Scoop, the IGN podcast, this weekend, and they had a viewer write in and talking about how they felt so stupid that they had just discovered that you could change the order of the jokers to basically maximize your multiplier and stuff like that.
Yep.
And the Game Scoop hosts were just laughing. They're like, who the fuck doesn't know that? This is like such an obvious, like, that's the whole blah, 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 whole point. Like, it's in the tutorial. And I was listening. I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. I had no idea you could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's still some stuff in that game that I don't know about that, easy to play, hard to master is kind of where that.
Yes. Very much so.
So fucking good. I love the cosmetics. I wonder if one day they'll be putting in stuff, like it'd be nice to have like a Witcher Joker that did something special or whatever,
Yeah.
But
they do have a Witcher Joker right now. Or not Joker, sorry. They don't have Jokers.
No, they have the skin. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be nice if they actually figure out what they're going to do with that, like adding new Jokers. I'm curious on that front, because I'm sure the person making it's a one-person dev, and this is done far better than they could ever probably imagined. So,
oh God, yeah. Can you imagine?
We'll take him back probably by the success.
Well, it's so smart. It's a $15 game that's often on sale for 10% off. And it's just, God, it does its one thing and it does it almost perfectly. It's so good. That's certainly on my orbiting my list. I need to play more of it to feel like I've, it's going to be on that list. So I'll go with another one. It might be on your list too, or you'll have a lot to say about this one, but it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I am slowly making my way through this game, and for a while, like I was so into it, and then I got bogged down into the open world stuff, and the open world stuff kind of pushed away the story. And so I got back onto the critical path. And by the way, I just did the piece in the last couple, or yesterday when I played for 45 minutes, but the week before that when I really got into it. The climb up to Mount Nibble or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
That music is fucking awesome. It's like this synth soundtrack, something. Yeah. Oh my God, it's the best song in the game so far. So good. So I've just got to the mines up there. So I'm trying to, fill out a couple of things on the edges, but really I'm just trying to critical path it because I want to get through most of this game before the end of the year to talk about it, because the characters, the party, like so much of it, the main story is so great. And I do like the side stuff. I'm glad it's there, but there's so much of it that if you get stuck, bogged down in it, you just can't get out of it. That pulls it down a little bit for me. Because this year is my Final Fantasy year. I played Remake this year, played 12 this year. We're going to play 1 together. I played another one that I'm blanking on right now. Final Fantasy Adventure, I guess, doesn't really count. But So I really want to get through this one, but unlike remake, it's got that bloat that is bogging me down a bit. But I think it's going to make my list.
I
But I'm
think
not
it
quite
will.
sure yet.
I think it's going to be on my list. It's definitely not topping my list. It doesn't have the punch that remake had, in my
No, it
opinion, and I
doesn't.
think it is because of it's it's bloated, and I feel like they were stuck in a weird place with that game on the stuff that it's covering and what people expect out of the next part of the Final Fantasy VII story
Hmm.
is bloated. And I feel like if they had cut it down, they would have gotten backlash of like, you're stripping it down, like uh, destroying the heart of what
That's true.
this chunk of the game is. And I'm like, well, I think at this point I would have liked it a little bit less open world crap to do.
Yeah,
And I know you can ignore it, but my brain doesn't really let me ignore it. I'll be
exactly
honest.
right. Exactly. I feel the same way. I'm like, oh, it's over there. I gotta unfog the map. Like, fucking stop and get back
Yeah,
on the critical path.
yeah. But it's definitely on my list. It's incredibly well done. Expansion of the story. Love the expansion of the characters. Um, Especially like I just like remake. Rebirth is the same story roughly, but I honestly feel like they build the characters up so much better. And remake and rebirth. Like
Yeah.
it just feels like better defined characters, which you can do when you're not stuck with little text boxes and probably an incredibly small in comparison max word count you could actually use.
Well, and that's the thing I'm so impressed with Rebirth is every single character interaction has added to who they are as characters. None of it has been something that I've wanted to kind of like quickly get
Yeah,
through. Yuffie's joined my
yeah,
party in the last 6 hours or so, and she's just adds like a really cool dimension to it.
yeah.
I find myself having a hard time switching away from Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa as my main party, but
Sure.
whatever. They all
Yeah,
have different. They add. I love Yuffie. She adds so much in her gameplay, but I'm really the tried and true trio is what I'm
yeah.
stuck with.
They're real good.
They are real good.
So yeah, that's gonna be on my list too. I can do a twofer here. Mostly because I'm like, I know one of these will be on my list, and then one circles. I'm not sure yet. So metaphor is easily going to be on my list, even without finishing it. Like they'd have to really screw up the ending for it to be to lose a place on my list. And as far as I know, they don't. They stick the landing. From what I've read, so that's cool. But on the other thing, I just realized we had Persona 3 Reload at the beginning of the year,
Oh, that's
and that was
right.
really good.
Yeah.
That was a really, really good Persona, and I'm glad I waited until the Reload version to play it,
Mm-hmm.
and experience that instead of trying to like emulate an old version of it. Or Persona 3 Portable. Now I could have got that for the Switch. I think
Yeah,
right
that's
now,
where I have it. Yeah.
and it's just a different game. I'll be honest. As far as I can tell, like there's been no definitive edition of this game. Persona 3 and I had two different versions, and then Persona 3 Portable was another different version. And Persona 3 Reload, I think, is just a much seems like a great way to experience it. And adds a bunch of stuff back. It doesn't have the female protagonist you get to choose, which sounds like it was just added for the portable, just to like, give
Yes.
something
Yeah.
else.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a like and super thought out thing overall from interviews I've read. Just like, yeah, we want to do something else, give it a little bit different for the PSP, but they're weirdly on the PC Persona 3. There's been a whole team, they've modded in the female protagonist.
Really?
Yeah, it's incredible what they've done. Like,
Was there an extra story to it though? They modded in the story?
no, it doesn't change the story. It changes who you can
Oh.
romance. That's it. No different
Oh,
story.
I thought it was a whole different story too. Oh,
No,
then
no,
why?
it's the same story, but the character interactions are different. It's not the same character interaction. So they
Oh,
had to
got it. Okay.
like the characters talk differently to the
Got it.
to
Okay.
to them.
So there is content besides just a skin change for the character.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not a skin
Yeah.
change. It is more than that's one of the reasons why they were like localizing that whole thing would take actually a significant amount of work. But fans are modding it in. It which is ridiculous how far that they're pushing PC modding on it.
Did you play The Answer? Came out last month.
No, I need to. That's
Mhm.
another one that's on my
Yeah.
list of like I need to finish this and play that too.
Hmm.
But Metaphor and Diablo have taken all my time. So
Yeah. How
um,
how far are you in Metaphor? You were 40 last year or last week. I mean,
last week I'm at 66.
okay.
I'm in the days before the final fight,
Yeah.
so I have 15 days until the final confrontation, and so I do think it will be 80 hours in the end. Thinking
Yeah,
of
that's
how
what.
long it
Yeah.
takes to go through these days, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, 80 hours seems about right. Which is short compared to
It is.
your
That's like a
your other
streamlined Persona.
Persona games.
Somehow that is streamlined by 80
Yes,
hours.
I'm like, wow, it doesn't even feel like 80 hours.
That's funny.
Yeah, so they're both. Metaphor is definitely on my list. Persona 3 Reload might be. It's
Yeah.
floating. It's might be an honorable mention. It might make it onto the list. Unsure, but it's kind of weird to see the year bookended by like here's when really the game that kind of started the current Persona formula that continues, and Metaphor being the latest game that moves that formula forward.
Well,
So
what a year Sega's having. I
yeah,
mean, Sonic just came out and reviewed pretty well and started selling pretty well. And like all of
yeah,
these plus Infinite Wealth, like, geez, what a year for Sega. As the publisher, I suppose,
Infinite
not the
Wealth was
developer.
this year too.
It
Holy
was,
crap!
yeah, it was, and I'm not gonna be able to even crack that open.
No.
For me, the next one is another indie game, 1000X Resist. It
Mm.
was a story game that came out, I think, at the beginning of the summer, around about. And it was billed as almost walking simulator ish. What is the term I'm looking for? Where you play a game and it's just text. Visual novel. There we go.
Visual
Visual
novel.
novel, walking simulator with some elements of near kind of philosophy or thought. The creator, I believe, was influenced by Near, which I think a lot of video game creators have been in some way. It was about a 9-hour journey, and um, it never felt too long. Like every time that you would progress through to the next chapter, something significant had happened. So there was a significant change either to the world or to relationships. So it didn't feel like spinning your wheels as you went through. The story was captivating all the way through. It caught me at the right time where I had a summer trip and timed myself and a Steam Deck, and I just went, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was, I don't typically enjoy sci-fi as much as I enjoy other things, and this was straight sci-fi with time bending, time exploration, different universes, almost like parallel lives, parallel stories. But then there was a huge piece of COVID. There was a huge piece of a pandemic.
Mm.
This was during or after the Hong Kong protests, and this was the um, diaspora of folks from that area kind of processing what it means to be part of the diaspora when things are going on back at home, and talking about wrestling with the thoughts of leaving home and how family treats you when you leave. And all of that tied in, all of that just, it was handled so well. Nothing ever felt too overwrought. Nothing felt like it overstayed its welcome. The visual novel or walking simulator elements were never too tedious. Yeah, for some reason they just polished it down where it felt really playable and consumable and thought provoking. I still think about that game often.
All right.
Yeah, the way the story played out. So I think that's going to be on my list. Again, there's still some big ones coming towards the end of the year. We typically do a 5-game list.
Yeah.
I'm not, so we'll see what makes the 5 games, but that one's right now certainly on the top 5.
Going back. Well, we can do one that's up recent. I was able to actually start playing a little of it. Echoes of Wisdom. It's gonna be on my list somewhere.
Yeah.
It's real good. Watching my daughter play it. She's done now. She beat it. She got all the echoes. Like,
very cool.
She did all of it. She's done. And she loved it. And I'm like, okay.
Now it's your turn.
Yeah, now it's my turn. And I have a hard time seeing this not being on the list. It's really well done.
It's so inventive and creative.
Yeah, it's neat to see a Zelda game that chucks the formula again. Like,
Yeah.
um, same thing what it felt like when playing Breath of the Wild, and it just being like, yeah, that Zelda games before, you haven't experienced this. Like, and it feels good. I'm like, this is great. I love experimentation in this, and generally, it's high quality experimentation. Like, just it works. When Nintendo's on, they're really on all the time. They, even though this wasn't developed
This was
internally at
Grezzo,
Nintendo,
yeah.
but they're definitely feel like they're the Nintendo oversight on this to make sure that it landed at a quality bar that they were happy with.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to say that it's like a diversion from the formula, because this is a game where it diverted from the formula, like you said, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, but that retained some of the original formula, the
Yeah.
dungeons, just enough to make it
Yep.
feel a little more toward the middle. But God, it did so much different.
Yeah. And so I have a hard time seeing that not being there.
Yeah,
Have
I
to play
agree.
more to see how I feel in the end, but
Yep.
I don't think, based on my daughter's reactions and what I saw of her playing, and now my time with starting with it, I'm like, yeah, I can't imagine it not being there. Yeah. What else do we got?
Well, I got another one. I don't know if I'm going to count this one in the end, although I feel like I probably will, because it's our list. What the fuck ever. Shadow of the Erd Tree. Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yeah.
I've only gotten through the Dancing Lion, so I played Shadow of the Erd Tree for probably about 10 hours or so. And I spent a lot of time before it came out getting back into Elden Ring and going through and mopping up a lot of old bosses and finding new areas, finding new things. I probably played like 30 hours of more of Elden Ring before Shadow came out. And then I played about 10 hours or so of Shadow, and have some just very vivid memories. Like one of the first jails that you come to, you can't summon your spirit ashes.
Yep.
You can summon other people, but I didn't. It basically took away my crutch, which was my mimic tier, and I was like, I'm gonna beat this guy, and it took me like 3 nights of just head against the wall until I just got so good at it that by the time I beat him, it was easy. It's like, damn, this game is well tuned to teach you how to play it. And they're just exploring again. Like the best thing about Shadow of the Erd Tree was just exploring, running into new places, and it's just what the fuck is here. And there's really cool new stuff in Shadow of the Erd Tree, and it was really great. I felt so every time I beat a boss, I just felt so proud. I beat Renala. Which one was in the base game? Well, anyway, whoever's in the base game, the sister. I beat Dancing Lion, beat that Evernight Jail, and a couple other bosses, and I need to get back to it. I don't know why I fell off of it. Something else came out, I'm sure. I
Yeah.
went on vacation or what. I think I went on vacation. But boy, it's got the magic of Elden Ring. It feels like a really nice, like a Blood and Wine, right? The Witcher DLC expansions. This feels like that. A really, really meaty. Like this is a new game. So I think it's going to be on my top 5. I'm going to play some more of it for the end of the year, but yeah, I think that's going to make it.
Yeah, I didn't play enough to. It won't be on mine. I just didn't play enough, and I dabbled slightly, and I played a little bit. I dabbled
picked it up.
A bit.
Oh, okay. For some reason,
and I was like, nah, it's okay. I'm not going back. But everything I've heard, pretty incredible expansion to that game. What? I mean, you talk about like what will be on my list or not, and should it be on my list, or can it be? Is Satisfactory.
Oh yeah,
I'm back and forth on that one because I'm like, it did officially come out.
I would,
but it's been in early access for so many years.
Yeah, but I thought you didn't play it till 1.0.
Nah, I didn't really play it. I played it for an hour previously just to know that, like, yes, this seems neat. I'll wait until 1.0.
Well, on this category, like Hades 2, I played quite a bit of this year. I fucking love it. I'm not putting it on my list this year because
until it's released.
Until it's 1.0. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, then Satisfactory probably is at least in contention. I don't know for sure. It's a game that makes me sit here and do math to like optimize my production lines and actually be happy about it and going like, oh, that's neat. And then incredibly satisfying whenever all the things come together and you've like set up your giant production. You're like everything's moving and just producing and doing what you want. And how easy it is to make that actually happen. Has a great just feel of playing the game, like slotting together different machines with conveyor belts and stuff. Like just the attaching of conveyor belts to inputs and outputs just has a nice like visual and audible feel to it, which they didn't have to go that far, but it does make it like you're playing a little bit with toys when you're doing
right.
it. There is a feeling playing games that there is that feeling, and it's some devs underestimate how important that is, even though it's not like the meat of your mechanics. But game feel does matter, and the Satisfactory people really know that is important. So I don't know if that'll be on my list or not, but it is up there. And it did come out in 1.0, and I played it. So, man, I mean, I feel like you still haven't mentioned the one, which I'm like, will be on your list for sure.
Well, you know what's funny? This whole conversation, I'm like, there's a game that I haven't mentioned that I cannot fucking think of. And I'm like, does that mean it shouldn't be on my list? I'm like, no, I'm forgetting something and I'm just very tired. So if you want to help me.
Astro Bot.
Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God, Anthony. Thank you. That's it. That's the one. I right now I don't see how that's not my number one.
Yeah, I can see that.
Astro Bot was like just and still is such a fun time. So inventive, so playful, and just fucking Mario Mario 64 levels of just smiling the whole time. And then playing it, I played it all the way through, and then playing with my daughter, watching her play all the way through, and watching her do a lot of it by herself. And now the speed run levels coming out. Astrobot's incredible. I cannot believe I forgot it was Astrobot. No, it's absolutely right now top of the list. I don't think there's any way that it gets beaten except for if I play more of Zelda at this point. Or I mean, I've pre-ordered Veilguard. If it's as good as some of the previews have said, like that could be one. I'm reading the Game of the Year book by Jordan something, I think. But it's basically like his favorite game of the year, or the most important game of every year for the last 25 years or whatever. And 2015 was The Witcher, and it was talking about the importance of that game and being a good adaptation of the literature. And I was just like, man, a game with a story. Like I'm such a sucker for that and gravitate towards those. So if this one has that plus the good gameplay, like it could be up there too.
It could be. I'm just curious.
Me too.
I want to be excited for it, and they've just done everything they possibly can to keep me from being excited for this game. Every bit of marketing has been like made me like slightly side-eye, squint my eyes at it, being like, "You sure? What are you doing with my Dragon Age?" And this comes from a person who doesn't hate the second one. So I guess that's the part that actually gets me. Like the reason I'm like, I don't hate the second one because I really like the characters in the second one, and the marketing hasn't done a good job of making me like really excited about the characters I'm going to be meeting.
The Vows and Vengeance podcast, which I don't know if you've heard about that or not, but it's a podcast leading up to. So it's got this bespoke character played by May. What's her name is May, I think. May Whitman. That's May. Anyway, from Arrested Development. The George Michael's girlfriend. Not cousin, but the girlfriend.
Okay.
And she's the main character, and then she interacts with all the main characters of Veilguard as they go through the podcast. And it's really great storytelling. It's audio drama, so it's not like a story read to you. It's like the drama. It's really cool, but I know before Halo 5, that podcast was awesome, and it had nothing to do with it, and the game paled in comparison to the story in the podcast. So who knows? But the story in the podcast so far is really, really good. So it's giving me just a little bit of hope, and we'll see on Tuesday when the embargo lifts.
Yeah, but I think that's all I have for the moment.
Yeah, me too. That's my list for now as well. which is probably a good place to end it because now I've got to finish preparing for class.
Oh
So,
boy.
yeah. So everyone out there, please get ready for the election. Get ready to vote if you're in the U.S. It's an important election. Hope you get out there and vote. And we will be back next week when we will be talking about the Nintendo announcement of Switch 2. Gonna will it into the world.
Yeah, there we go. No, I doubt it, but
we'll see. Whether or not you believe that, folks, please rate us on your podcast service of choice, and we will see you next week.
Later, everyone.